Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, today I am doing another sourdough recipe. Well, the same recipe that I shared before, but this time I'm going to talk and kind of walk you through it a little bit more because I know some people like no talking and then some people like to have people kind of explaining stuff a little bit better. I got my apron on, so we are ready to rock and roll on making the sourdough. This is a recipe that I've been using pretty much since day one with my sourdough journey. Again, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I got this recipe down pretty darn good, okay? So first thing what you need, of course, is an active starter. Mine is nice and bubbly. It's actually on the point of starting to go down, which is kind of like the best peak time to use your starter. You also are gonna want to get a scale. I know we're so used to doing stuff in tablespoons, teaspoons, cups, but the scale is definitely the easiest, most accurate way. You can pick them up off of Amazon. I'll have everything I use linked down below as well. So I got my scale here. I got a large mixing bowl. I'm gonna put my large mixing bowl onto my scale. Okay, got my bowl on here. So first thing we are gonna do is add 300 grams of water. This is pretty much just like lukewarm water. You just don't want it to be super cold. I have also doubled this recipe. This is making 1 loaf. If you do want to make 2 loaves, you would just double all the ingredients, and that's worked out really well for me. So 300 grams of water. Make sure you're always tarring your scale so it's clearing it each time. Then we're gonna go in with 100 grams of active starter. I love doing this. Ideally, you want your starter to float on the water. Yep. I always am off on my measurements. I got a little over 100 there, but that's okay. And set that aside for now. Hit our tar on the scale, and then we're gonna mix up the starter and the water in here until it's fully combined. So it's just gonna make like a creamy looking water here. I say fully combined, but I mean, it doesn't have to be absolutely, you can still have some little pieces of starter floating around in here and be okay. Now that we got our water and our starter combined, we're gonna go ahead and add 500 grams of flour. So I just used, you can use bread flour, I just use all-purpose, unbleached all-purpose flour. I've done both. I've done bread flour and I've done this, and bread flour always seems to work the best. I mean, sorry, just good old store-bought flour always seems to work the best. I went ahead and I accidentally changed the measurements on here. So 500 grams of flour added to our water and starter that we just combined. Again, if you do want to double this, you would do 1,000 grams of flour. I've been giving my bread away now to friends and neighbors, and people are just seriously loving it. So I'm so excited. It's just so much fun. Once you start baking your own bread, you're gonna be hooked, I promise you. Okay, I'm gonna move my scale for now so we can combine the water, the flour, and the starter all together. I just use a spatula, but you can get in there with your hands if you like. I just kind of do this because it's a stickier dough. So the trick to getting in here with the stickier dough is you want to have your hands a little bit damp with cold water. So don't use warm water on your hands, but use cold water. And it's gonna form like a kind of sticky, flakier dough. But as we do our stretch and fold and our kneading, it's gonna thicken out and it's gonna become like a smooth, soft dough. So you just wanna get these pretty well combined, and then we will place a lid on this and let it sit for 30 minutes. And I'll show you here in a second what the dough looks like. Like I said, it's more of like a sticky, flaky-ish dough. I'll get in here a little bit with my hands. I try not to because at this stage, usually it's kind of sticky. It's not too bad right now. Not too bad. Here is our dough all combined for our first go around. Now I'm gonna place a lid on top of this and let it sit for 30 minutes. I like to do, while I'm waiting for my first round of the 30 minutes here, I do my salt and get that ready because I have forgotten it before many a times. So I found this way is best. So we're gonna do 11 grams of salt, just any coarse salt. You can do, this is just kosher salt, you can do sea salt, just a coarse salt works. But you don't wanna forget the salt. Like I said, I have done it. It adds flavor, it's just really good to it. I am just so off on my measurements today. It's crazy. I'm like doing way too much. Okay, so 11 grams of salt. So I just get that ready to go like this, and then I sit it on top of my bowl so I don't forget. When the timer is up, we will add a little bit water, salt, and we'll do our first full set, well, technically our second set of stretch and fold. When we mixed the dough and got that all together, that was our first set of stretch and fold. So you're gonna do 4 total over the next 2 hours. So every 30 minutes, 4 times. All right, my timer just went off, so it's been 30 minutes. I'm gonna take the lid off. Now here's my dough. I'm gonna put the salt right on there. And then I'm going to add a little bit of warmish water to it. And we'll get that dough, or the salt all mixed in to the dough. And again, my hands were clean. I just washed them and then I left them damp with cold water. So it just makes it a little bit easier since it is more of a stickier dough. So right now I'm just kind of mixing it all together so that the salt and the water that I added get combined. And then we'll do our next, we'll start our stretch and fold. So what the stretch and fold is doing is basically just building the gluten strands and the bonds here, and just making your dough. See how it's already getting so much smoother? Get this in here. Okay, so technically I'm kind of doing the stretch and fold right now as I'm pulling and then pushing down on it. I just want to show you. So you just go around, stretch, fold. The first round right now, it's not going to stretch a whole lot because we just haven't really worked it yet. So I just go around the bowl a total of 4 times doing that. And then I'll usually come in and I'll just like kind of form it into more like a ball shape. And I'll leave it there. So we'll put our lid back on, set our timer again for 30 minutes. And when the 30 minutes is done, we will repeat the same process, but we won't add the salt again. While we're waiting for our next set of stretch and fold, that's a good time to get your starter fed, so you don't forget to do that process either. So I just use the Weck tulip jars. I absolutely love them. And I change it out. I have 4 jars total, but I change it out every time because they're just so hard to clean. The starter, it's just so sticky, the gluten. So I do 30 grams of starter, feeding mine, and you've got to get to know your starter. Once you get to know your starter, you can figure it out more. I was doing a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio, and I've changed that up. I do 30 grams of starter, and I do 125 grams of bottled water or filtered water. I've learned that makes a big difference because I was doing it from the tap, and it did not go well because there's chlorine in tap water. And then I do 140 grams of unbleached all-purpose flour. Again, I just buy the store brand, generic stuff. No need to get too fancy. And then I'll mix that all up, stick it on my counter. A consistent temperature is key, you guys, with your starter. So I actually have a fermenter that goes around this so that I can maintain a consistent temperature because my house is either too hot or too cold. And my starter has been doing really, really well since doing this whole feeding process and keeping it warm. So again, you can play with your starter, but that's what I do for the most part. 30 grams starter, 125 filtered water, and 140 unbleached all-purpose flour. It's been another 30 minutes. We're on to our third round of stretch and fold. Again, I just washed my hands and left them a little damp with cold water. See, as it's getting a little bit thicker, it's staying together better, and it's getting a little bit smoother. So we're just gonna stretch and fold, stretch and fold. And I just do 1 loop around. You don't need to get crazy with it. And then I kind of just like to form it into a cute little ball. And we'll do 1 more round for our stretch and fold, our 4th and final round. And then we'll do our bulk rise after that. Time for our last go around on the stretch and fold. Again, my hands are damp. And we're just gonna go around one more time. At this point, the dough should be pretty thick, like pretty strong, and fairly smooth. So our last little go around here, I'm just gonna put them back to a cute ball. Now I'm gonna leave this on the countertop for our bulk rise. So that's anywhere from like 4 to 10 hours you can do, depending on the temperature of your house. And I just cover it back up and I leave it here out on the countertop. You can also do, you know, if you run out of time, it's late in the night and you wanna put this on and then put it in the fridge, you can do that. I do that sometimes. I feel though just leaving it out on the countertop is where I get the bulk rise the best. So we'll check back in on this in about like 6 hours, I'll say. It's the next day, so I ended up, it was just too late and I didn't want to mess with my bread, or with the dough. So I went ahead and I put it in the fridge overnight to finish with the bulk rice. So this is what it looks like. I'll zoom in on this here in a minute. But it's doubled in size, which is good, and it's starting to form a little bit of air bubbles in there, which we also want to see. So now we're gonna shape the dough. Okay, so we're gonna get the bowl, or the dough out of the bowl. I just lightly flour the surface. You don't have to, they say it's optional, but I don't know. It's a sticky dough, so I don't really know how people do it optionally. And then you could use your dough scraper or just your hands. I usually just do my hands, but I'll try to look fancy and do the dough scraper. And you're gonna remove the dough. Again, we're gonna be kind of gentle with it because we want like these air sock pockets and stuff, because that's what's gonna give you the light, open, airy crust, which is what you want in your bread. So when we pull it out, this dough's still pretty cold. I kind of wish it was a little bit warmer. Get rid of that. And then I actually flour it just a little bit more. Again, a lot of people don't, but I'm just like, man, it's hard to do otherwise. So like I said, I'm just gonna kind of gently stretch it out just a little bit here. You can see all the little air bubbles and stuff that I have forming. We don't want to destroy those too much, and we're kneading here. So we already did all of our kneading and all that, so no need to go crazy again with the kneading, but I kind of just stretch it out a little bit to form like a rectangle, a long rectangle here. And then I'll take the sides and I'll roll those up, and I'll roll the other side up. And then we're gonna take the end and just start rolling it into a ball, just like this. Everybody kind of has their own way of doing it. This is just how I do mine. And then we're gonna just start pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling. And what this is doing is just creating tension in the ball, and then it's gonna form a nice tight ball, and it's gonna stay together for us. So pushing and pulling, and we're just gonna keep doing this till all the little lines are gone, and we have a nice bowl. A nice ball. I can't talk today. Oh my goodness. So push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. Again, being gentle, we want to keep our little air bubbles and everything in there. Push and pull. Okay, so once you got it looking pretty good, I like this. We're gonna let this sit here on the counter, on your butcher block, whatever you got, for 30 minutes. I'm gonna set it aside, and that's a good time to get your proofing basket ready, okay? Your what is it, Banton? I don't know the name. It's a proofing basket. I actually got this guy and I absolutely love it. It's like a little medallion that I'll show you. You stick here, and then when you cook your bread, it has this little design on it. It's really cool. So I got my Banton basket, my proofing basket. I got a flour sack. You can get these really inexpensively off of Amazon. You can get all this on Amazon. So what I do is I just lay my flour sack on here, and then some people use rice flour here. I just stick with the all-purpose unbleached flour that I already have. And then since I'm doing the medallion, I'll stick that in there, and I'll give that a little bit of flour as well. Then once 30 minutes, we'll pop that in here, we'll put this on, and then I actually just cover mine with a shower cap. So I'll show you that in a second. So this is a good time though to get this all set and ready, so then next time when we shape the dough again, we can put it right into the basket. Dough all done. Now we're gonna go ahead and stick it into our proofing basket that we already did flour on. We're gonna take it and flip it upside down, right there in the middle, and you can kind of pinch any pieces together if you feel like it's not together enough or anything like that. And then just take your flour sack, cover it up like this. Get that in there all bundled up like a nice little baby. And then I just take an inexpensive shower cap. I cover it up there. And now we're gonna pop this into the fridge. This will go into the fridge for 12 to 48 hours. I usually do about 24 hours. I've also done 48 hours, but this is gonna be when your bread ferments and gets that nice sour flavor to it. So no more than 48 hours, but I would say do 24 hours. So I'll see you in 24 hours. Okay, it's been 24 hours since we made our bread, so I pulled it out of the refrigerator. I have my oven preheating at 450 degrees with the Dutch oven inside of it. So you want your Dutch oven to be warm. All we're gonna do now is remove our beautiful dough that's been sitting in there fermenting and getting all that yummy, yummy sourdough flavor into it. So I take it out of my proofing basket and I'm gonna lay it on a piece of parchment paper. And then we're just gonna take the parchment paper and place it into the Dutch oven once our oven is preheated. So let's go ahead and dump this over. There we go. And remember, I used the little medallion on my bread, so I'm gonna take that off. If you didn't use it, that's okay. I just like how it looks. And then I like to kind of rub the flour on the design just a little bit. Gives it a little something. And it's gonna be nice and cold, and that's when we're gonna score the dough. So let me grab my scorer. If you have a scorer just yet, just use a sharp knife, that's okay. I just grabbed this little guy off of Amazon. And then I'm just gonna kind of score along the sides here. Pretty decent size. You just want it to be opened up because when we put the bread in the oven, it's gonna rise. So if we didn't score it, it's gonna crack and look all funny and stuff. So sometimes I even will do a little bit of scoring just here on the top as well to kind of break it up so it doesn't ruin my design here on the top. And we're gonna just let this sit while our oven preheats, and then we'll move it into the Dutch oven once our oven's done preheating. That way it has a little bit of time to settle. My hot Dutch oven. It's very hot, so make sure you use your oven mitts, okay? Let's sit this right there. Then we're gonna take the parchment paper, just like I said, and hold that up. Put it into our Dutch oven. Some people will add a little bit water or ice cube in here to help with the steam. I don't do it. I've tried it and I feel like there was no difference. So I just put it in, I kind of move my parchment paper around. You kind of just want the parchment paper kind of flat all around it. Otherwise it gets like these funny shapes on the bread, which I'll probably get anyways because I always seem to because my parchment paper, but I try to flatten it out as much as I possibly can. Then you're gonna put the lid back on. We're gonna bake it with the lid on for 30 minutes at 450 degrees. Then we'll take the lid off and bake it an additional 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, the bread is all done, you guys, and she is beautiful. So I took her out of the oven. Now it's still hot, so keep that in mind. But I just pull up here on the parchment paper. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh, you can always reuse this parchment paper too. So if you want to just stick it back in your Dutch oven and use it again and again, you can do that. They even sell like silicone inserts if you wanted to do that. That is gorgeous. I'm very pleased with her. I think she looks good. Again, look at how much she rose up. That's why we have to do the slices in here, you guys, so that the gases, everything can be released and your bread can fully rise. So we're gonna let this cool. They say, experts say to let it cool completely. I never do that because we like the bread hot so the butter melts on it, but I do let it cool about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, just so it's cool enough to handle as you slice it. So I'll come back when we slice it up and we put the butter on and it's all melted in. There's nothing like this, you guys, nothing. Slice this baby up. By the way, this is like the best knife. I mean, like I said, I have everything linked down below, like what I use for my bread. This one's nice because it slices kind of through the bottom. The bottom's a little bit thicker because it's homemade bread. Ah, look at the steam come off of that. Isn't it glorious? Let's butter this baby up and enjoy our fruits of our labor. We have a nice open, airy crust. It's soft, which is what you want to see. It's a good bread. This turned out very nice. Let's taste it. All right, let's get some butter. Ooh. Once you have this, you literally will like crave it. I'm telling you. Get that butter all soaked in. So good. So good. Okay, let's try our first bite, you guys. There's nothing quite like the first bite of your homemade sourdough bread. It's just the right amount of sour. I fermented it for 24 hours. Again, you could do, I would say 24 to 48 hours. Nice, flaky crust. It's just the best stuff ever. Hopefully this helped you out. Definitely give it a try. It's so much fun making your own sourdough bread. Be sure to subscribe while you're here and give this video a big thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.